In March, at the Conservative Political Action Conference, Trump said this.
In 2016, I declared, I am your voice. Today I add, I am your warrior, I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
The meaning is clear. Trump wants to punish all those who, in his opinion, have wronged the country, wronged the MAGA voters, and most importantly, wronged Trump himself. In a speech to the national religious broadcasters, Trump said this.
We will bring back law and order in our country. I will direct a completely overhauled DOJ to investigate every radical, out-of-control prosecutor in America for their illegal, racist, and reverse enforcement of the law.
Over the years, Trump has made many statements to this fact. He told Hillary Clinton that once he won, she'd be in jail. He wants foreign countries to investigate the Bidens. He wrote on social media that he would appoint a special prosecutor to go after Biden, his family, and all others involved with the destruction of our elections, borders, and the country itself. He said that John Kerry should be prosecuted. He wants Adam Schiff questioned at the highest level for fraud and treason. John Bolton, he said, should be in jail, and his money seized. James Comey should face years in jail. He suggested that former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, had committed treason by reaching out to China following the 2020 election. The list goes on. This isn't just empty political rhetoric. Trump says similar things to officials in private, and grows angry when his demands aren't carried out. Trump is also angry with the deep state, who he feels has stood in his way, and blocked him from doing what he wants to do. Here is what Trump had to say about the deep state.
This is the final battle. With you at my side, we will demolish the deep state. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will drive out the globalists. We will cast out the communists. We will throw off the sick political class that hates our country.
To do this, Trump plans to take control over the government. Using Schedule F, which allows him to reclassify federal employees, Trump would fire all federal employees who are not loyal to him. He would restaff the FBI, the Justice Department, and all other government agencies. Once these departments were under his control, he would instruct them to go after anyone he believes has wronged the country or wronged him personally. Trump also wants to go after the fake news press, who he feels has lied to the people and betrayed the country. In a Truth Social post, Trump complained that MSNBC was guilty of election interference because of its coverage of him, which he likened to a 24-hour hit job. More ominously, Trump contended that our so-called government should come down hard on them, and make them pay for their illegal political activity. Trump will use all government agencies, which he controls, to threaten and silence all voices critical of him. In the end, the nonpartisan institutions that allow our democracy to flourish would be destroyed. The Justice Department, FBI, Civil Service, and others would become vassals of a Trump government and be forced to do his bidding. And threatening the press and silencing all voices critical of him would end the First Amendment to the Constitution. In a speech to the National Religious Broadcasters Forum in Nashville, Tennessee, Trump said that he wants to bring Christianity back to this country.
We have to bring back our religion. We have to bring back Christianity in this country.
A Trump administration would change the public school system to reflect family Christian values. The course content would be changed to be more patriotic and family-friendly. Questionable books would be banned. All references to gay individuals or transgenders would be purged from all materials. And prayer would be allowed in schools.
I supported school prayer, very important, school prayer.
On top of new federal laws, the states could add their own changes to the law. In Texas, Christian conservative supporters have pressured the legislature to require public schools to display the Ten Commandments in every classroom. Trump has also promised to give the Christian nationals a greater say in how our country would be run. He has promised to install faith advisors in every federal department and agency.
I signed an executive order to install faith advisors in every federal department and agency so that your voice and the Christian worldview would be heard in the halls of power in Washington and all over the world. It was a very big deal.
Russell Vought, the former Office of Management and Budget Director in the first Trump administration, and current policy advisor to Trump, has stated that America was founded as a Christian nation and an incoming Trump administration should reflect Christian values. In an article written 2 years ago for Newsweek, Russell Vought stated that human rights are defined by natural laws derived from God, and these laws are above human laws. The article also stated that our rights and duties come from the laws of God, not the laws of man, and that our freedoms are defined by God, and not by man. Under a new Trump administration, our rights and freedoms would be reinterpreted. We could expect a push to abolish same-sex marriage, end abortion, reduce access to contraceptives. A Trump administration would seek to make all forms of adult content material illegal. They would also propose a religious test for immigration. Currently, influential advisors close to Donald Trump are developing plans to infuse Christian nationalist ideas into every aspect of government, should Donald Trump return to power. Trump has said that the moment I take the oath of office we will begin the largest deportation operation in American history.
On day one, my administration will terminate every open border policy of the Biden administration. We will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
In an Axios news report, a source familiar with Trump's plan told Axios, Trump wants to mobilize ICE agents, the FBI, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and federal prosecutors. He will also mobilize state and local law enforcement officers, and using the Insurrection Act of 1807, he will mobilize the National Guard and overseas military forces. Trump wants to use these agents to round up thousands of undocumented immigrants, at their places of employment, in their homes, in their cars, or on the street, and deport them. Trump wants to revoke all temporary visas. For example, Afghans who worked with American forces in Afghanistan were given visas when the war ended, for their protection. Under a Trump administration, these visas would be revoked and our Afghan allies would all be deported back to Afghanistan, where they will be facing long prison terms or death. In addition, Trump wants to revoke all visas under the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program or the DACA program. Immigrants who received these visas were brought to the United States when they were very young. Most of them have grown up here, gone to school here, are employed here, and are raising their families here. These deportations would be catastrophic for the families involved. And the 700,000 or more undocumented immigrants that are in the U.S. awaiting adjudication of their immigration claims, would no longer be able to live and work within the U.S. borders while they waited. They would be sent to an internment camp at the southern border and be deported. Trump also wants to re-establish the Muslim ban. He wants to stop all people of color from entering the United States. Once arrested, these arrested undocumented immigrants would be detained in internment camps along the southern border where they would be held until they could be deported. Todd Schultz, the president of FWD.US, an immigration and criminal justice advocacy group, said that Americans should understand these policy proposals are an authoritarian, often illegal, agenda that would rip apart nearly every aspect of American life. It would also tank the economy and violate the basic civil rights of millions of immigrants and native-born Americans alike. Trump has repeatedly bragged that he installed the Supreme Court judges that overturned Roe v. Wade, thus terminating a woman's abortion rights at the federal level. Abortion rights will now be determined by each individual state. Last week, Trump posted a video on Truth Social that supported leaving abortion access up to the states. "My view is that now we have abortion where everybody wanted it, from a legal standpoint, in the hands of the states. The states will determine, by vote or legislation or perhaps both, what the law will be, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case the law of the state." In the 2 years since Roe v. Wade was overturned, more than a dozen states have banned most or all abortions. Idaho is one of those states, where all abortions are banned. One exception is if the mother's life is at risk. But this decision is subject to review. And if it is determined that the mother's life was not at risk, then the doctor could go to jail or lose their medical license. As a result of this, doctors are refusing to terminate even medically necessary pregnancies, for fear of legal repercussions. But in Texas, anyone who performs, induces, or attempts an abortion where an unborn child dies as a result of the offense, is guilty of a first-degree felony, punishable by up to life in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. In Arizona, the Arizona Supreme Court upheld an anti-abortion law enacted in 1864. This law prohibits abortion, except to save the mother's life. No exception for rape or incest. Any person that assists a woman getting an abortion could be punished by up to 5 years in prison. Anti-abortion bills moving in some states go even further. Legislation in Louisiana that would classify abortions as homicide, and extend legal personhood to fertilized eggs, was voted out of committee on Wednesday. Homicide is punishable in Louisiana by the death penalty or life without the possibility of parole. And while some states, such as Idaho, Missouri and Kentucky, have legal language saying people who get an abortion can't be charged, those patients could be forced to testify against their doctor or friends who helped them access the procedure. But if Trump becomes president in 2024, he may go even further than this. When asked if states could monitor women's pregnancies, Trump replied, "I think they might do that. And if states did do that, if they did begin monitoring women's pregnancies, this is what it might look like. Women and/or doctors would be required to register all pregnancies with the government. Women would have to adhere to a government-approved prenatal health program. Doctors would be required to monitor all pregnancies, reporting any lapse in care to the federal government. And any pregnancy that did not result in a healthy birth would be investigated. The net result of this would be that the federal government would become involved in every aspect of a woman's pregnancy. They would know when the woman became pregnant. They would know if and when she visited her doctor. They would know if a pregnancy ended. If the government determined that the woman had been in any way responsible for the termination of the pregnancy, she could be arrested and tried for a crime. And if she was helped by her doctor or a family member, or a friend, they could also be tried as an accessory to that crime. States have also enacted strong abortion trafficking laws. Abortion trafficking applies to any adult who recruits, harbors or transports a pregnant woman for the purpose of procuring an abortion. A proposed law in Llano, Texas, would make it illegal to engage in abortion trafficking on any road within the city or county limits. The law would allow any private citizen to sue any person or organization they suspect of violating the ordinance. If Texas were to adopt this law, then any travel through Texas for the purpose of obtaining an abortion would be illegal. Anti-abortion advocates behind this measure are targeting regions along interstates and in areas with airports. The goal is to block off the main arteries out of Texas and keep pregnant women hemmed in within the confines of their anti-abortion state. Clearly, anti-abortion states want to stop pregnant women from leaving their states. It is still unclear how far they are willing to go to accomplish this. In 2022, Congress passed the Gun Safety Bill, the most significant firearms legislation in nearly 30 years. The bill provides for tougher background checks for buyers younger than 21 years old. $15 billion for mental health programs and school security upgrades. Additional funding to encourage states to implement red flag laws, which would remove firearms from people that are considered a threat. Prohibit sale of guns to those convicted of domestic violence. And close the gun show loophole that allows guns to be purchased at gun shows without background checks. Trump is against this bill and wants to repeal it. In a speech to the National Rifle Association members, Trump said that no one will lay a finger on your firearms. He said that if he wins the presidency, he will roll back all Biden-era gun restrictions. And every single Biden attack on gun owners and manufacturers will be terminated on my very first week back in office, perhaps my first day. And in that same speech, Trump said this about the increasing gun violence in schools.
If even 5% of teachers, people that are skilled with arms, we want that, 5% were voluntarily armed and trained to stop active shooters, we would achieve effective deterrence and the problem would cease to exist.
Would the problem really cease to exist? Do we really want our teachers armed with guns and having shootouts in our schools? Keeping guns out of the hands of shooters might be a better solution.
Multiple capital injuries! Multiple capital injuries!
The Justice Department announced that to date, nearly 1,400 people have been arrested and charged in connection with the January 6th riot. And nearly 800 of them have pleaded guilty. Of those charged, 127 people are accused of using a deadly or dangerous weapon, or causing serious bodily injury to police officers. Trump and his allies in Congress view the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol as a noble effort, and have long lamented how badly those arrested for breaking into Congress have been treated. During a Trump rally, Donald Trump said this:
If I run and if I win, we will treat those people from January 6th fairly. We will treat them fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons because they are being treated so unfairly.
Trump has hinted at plans to abandon NATO. Trump has long been unhappy with the NATO military alliance, arguing that the Europeans are not paying their fair share. Trump has threatened to severely reduce the U.S. participation in NATO if the Europeans do not meet his demands to pay more. Trump's rhetoric about this issue has intensified as his campaign moves forward. At a rally in South Carolina, Trump said this.
They asked me that question. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want.
Most experts feel that abandoning NATO would be a disaster. In a Times radio interview, former National Security Advisor in the Trump administration, John Bolton, said this:
it would be a catastrophic mistake for the United States to drop out of NATO. People are desperate to find reasons to think Trump won't withdraw, but make no mistake, on Trump's mind, that's his objective.
Without NATO, each European country would have to provide for its own defense. And the weaker countries of Eastern Europe would be completely at the mercy of Russia. A Russia that has stated in a new policy statement that it sees the U.S. as an existential threat to its territorial integrity. Dr. Aaron Stein, a Black Sea Fellow and current president of the Foreign Policy Research Institute, said this about abandoning NATO. It would be a tremendously stupid endeavor, especially at a time when war in Europe rages, and much of Europe is looking to the United States to deter further conflict. Trump has said this about ending the war in Ukraine.
I will end that war in one day. It'll take 24 hours. I know Zelensky well. I know Putin well. I would get that ended in a period of 24
You can break that deal.
100%. It would be easy. That deal would be easy.
And in an interview with Sean Hannity of Fox News, Trump said this about Putin and the Ukraine war.
Well, I'm going to have to go a little short, but I got along with him great. Had I been president, he would have been much better off because he wouldn't have gone into Ukraine. But ultimately, he's going to take over all of Ukraine.
Clearly, Trump wants to cut and run from the war in Ukraine. He would end the war immediately, forcing Ukraine to concede to Russia all its territory that Russia has taken so far. This includes the Crimea Peninsula and territories in the Donbas region of Ukraine. Because Russia has attacked Ukraine once, there is no guarantee that Russia would not attack Ukraine again, in 2 or 3 years, when they have rebuilt their military. And there is no guarantee that Russia would not attack some other European country at some time in the future, putting all Eastern European countries at risk. And in an exclusive interview with NBC Meet the Press reporter Kristen Welker, she read this quote from Putin. "We surely hear that Mr. Trump says he will resolve all burning issues within several days, including the Ukrainian crisis. We cannot help but feel happy about it." It is easy to understand why Putin would want Trump for president. Any settlement where Ukraine gives up 20% of its land is really no settlement at all. And after a few years, after Putin rebuilds his military, who knows what Putin will want next. The United States set a record for oil output during Biden's first term in office, but Trump wants to do even more. He would roll back all the clean energy policies of the Biden administration and initiate a series of pro-oil initiatives. Trump would reverse the Biden policies on coal and fossil fuel power plants. Coal power plants are responsible for 1/4 of the greenhouse gas emissions generated by the United States. Under the Biden administration, coal and fossil fuel plants are required to capture virtually all their emissions, or shut down. Trump plans to reverse all of Biden's coal and oil environmental policies. He would allow coal and fossil fuel plants to operate with little or no restrictions. Trump also wants to undo the Biden administration's policies on gas-powered cars. Gas-powered cars and trucks are responsible for another 1/4 of the greenhouse gases generated by the United States. The Biden administration has placed limits on tailpipe emissions for all new gas-powered cars, and wants the majority of the cars produced by 2032 to be either all-electric or hybrids. Trump has said those regulations will lead to a bloodbath in the U.S. economy, kill the auto industry and trigger an assassination of jobs. Trump has said he would repeal crooked Joe Biden's insane electric vehicle mandate. Michael McKenna, a Trump advisor, said that, unwinding all that will be Trump's first order of business. Trump also plans to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. The Inflation Reduction Act is the largest investment in fighting climate change to date. It offers tax credits to help industry shift over to clean energy generation. It also offers incentives for car owners to shift over to electric cars. Trump has called this one of the dumbest decisions he has ever heard of. He will try to repeal this law when he begins his second term. Trump has said that he wants to unleash domestic energy production like never before. He plans to open environmentally sensitive areas, such as the Alaskan Arctic, and offshore coastal areas, to drilling. At his rallies, Trump says this:
I will end Joe Biden's war on American energy and unleash our most powerful economic weapon. This is our most powerful economic weapon. You know what it is? Drill, baby, drill. Most powerful weapon we have.
Trump also plans to end all international climate agreements. He will most surely pull out of the Paris Accords as he did in 2017. He will most likely announce this during the Global Climate Summit in Azerbaijan on November 11, just days after the U.S. elections. Under a Trump administration, the United States would take a huge step back from fighting climate change. According to a study by Carbon Brief, a climate analysis site, Trump policies would add 4 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions to the atmosphere. A return of Trump would be, in a word, horrific, said Andrew Rosenberg, a former National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration official, now fellow at the University of New Hampshire. It would also be incredibly stupid. It would roll back progress made over decades to protect public health and safety. There is no logic to it other than to destroy everything. Another priority of a Trump administration would be to defund Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is the principal provider of reproductive health care to low-income women. Trump wants to end the Affordable Health Care Act. In his first term, Trump tried to end the Affordable Health Care Act, but he failed by one vote. The Affordable Health Care Act was passed during the Obama administration and provides health insurance for 25 to 30 million people. In a rally in Iowa, Trump said that he intends to unilaterally send troops into Democratic-run cities to keep order. His justification would be the Insurrection Act, passed by Congress in 1792. The law grants the president the authority to deploy the U.S. military domestically and use it against Americans under certain conditions. And in a speech at CPAC, 2023, here is what Trump had to say.
And in cities where there's been a complete breakdown of public safety, I will send in federal assets, including the National Guard, until law and order is restored.
Do we really need the U.S. military swarming into our cities to keep order? Our state and local police are well suited for this task.
Very simply, if you rob a store, you can fully expect to be shot as you are leaving that store.
Trump would bring back the death penalty in a big way. He has talked about shooting shoplifters on the spot, and giving convicted drug dealers the death penalty. It is our court system that should punish shoplifters and drug dealers. Shooting a teenager taking a video game from a grocery store would be tragic. Trump wants to send U.S. troops into Mexico to fight the drug cartels. In his first term, Trump had to be talked out of bombing Mexico to take out drug labs. Here is what former Defense Secretary Mike Esper had to say.
President pulls me aside on at least a couple occasions and suggests that maybe we have the U.S. military shoot missiles into Mexico.
If you think Trump won't be that bad, think again. Trump wants to smash the state and take control of all agencies, departments, and divisions within the government. He wants to go after everyone he believes have betrayed him. Launch the largest deportation operation in American history. Allow Christian national faith advisors into our schools and all government departments. Repeal the gun safety bill, which was the most significant firearms legislation passed in the last 30 years. Abandon Ukraine, allowing Russia to take control of a large part of Eastern Europe. Leave NATO, allowing Russia to take the Baltic states and possibly more. Withdraw from the Paris Accords and all other international environmental agreements. Terminate all environmental policies, allowing the oil industry to operate with little or no restrictions. Implement a national abortion ban, allowing the states to do whatever they want. Terminate Planned Parenthood, who provides reproductive health care to low-income women. End the Affordable Health Care Act, which provides health insurance to over 20 million people. Pardon the January 6 rioters, including 127 who were charged with causing serious bodily injury to Capitol Police officers. Encourage a vigilante justice system where alleged criminals are dealt with immediately, by ordinary citizens with guns. Send U.S. armed forces into inner cities to crush protest rallies. And send U.S. soldiers, missiles, and tanks, into Mexico to crush the drug cartels. In conclusion, it is clear that Trump is unpredictable and could do anything. During his first term he had mainstream Republicans around him to keep him in check. But that is no longer the case. The mainstream Republicans are gone. Trump is now surrounded by white nationals, QAnon conspiracy cult members, and Christian nationals. Policy making will be guided by the Heritage Foundation, a Christian national group, who have a very definite plan. Their plan, Project 2025, is frightening.